Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In case you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe it. Today's video we are going to talk about actually creating an ADF instance in Azure Portal, how we can create an instance, what are the various options that we have to specify, and then how we could use that created instance for working within the Azure Data Factory. So we'll use Azure Portal to log in into that. For this, I'm assuming you should have a subscription within the Azure Portal. That could be a trial subscription, or it could be a pay-as-you-go subscription, or whatever the subscription option you have, but you need to have it in order to create an ADF instance. So let's see how we could create an ADF instance in Azure Portal practically and go through the options within that. So friends, once you are in the Azure Portal, we just need to go on to create a resource, and we could create any kind of a resource. So let's search for Data Factory. That's the one which we want to create. Once you search for Data Factory, the first option you'll get is Data Factory by Microsoft is in Azure service, a serverless service. So we'll click on here, and then we'll click on this create button. That's what we are going to do. Now there are a couple of options over here. One is the subscription. I already have a pay-as-you-go subscription, so that's my subscription. You need to kind of specify the resource group. Resource group is just kind of a folder, kind of a grouping of all the services or whatever you kind of configure within the Azure. So I'm gonna use this one, and name of the instance for the Azure Data Factory. So I'm just gonna name it as RKV Data Factory, and the region for this I'm choosing is East US. Based upon your location you could choose that, and by default now we have a version 2. In fact, there was a version 1 also beforehand, but now Azure Data Factory is running on version 2. So that's the first basic options that you choose. Next, you go on to the Git configuration. Now, Git configuration is technically used for making sure you get your repository and all the Azure Data Factory artifacts are actually stored out here. In case something happens, you could go back to a particular milestone, you make your commits, just like the software development is done with the Git. So I'm just using configure Git later. You could configure it later also. Right now I'm not using anything, it's only for the demonstration purpose. And then we'll say go on to next on to the networking. So you could have enable managed virtual network on the default auto resolve integration runtime. I'm not going to tick this option because it's only for the demonstration purpose, and I'm going to keep this as a public endpoint. We could keep it as a private endpoint also, but for the demonstration purpose, I'm just using a public endpoint. It all depends upon how you configure your landing zones or anything based upon how you're going to access your services. So those private endpoints could also be configured. Now let's go on to the next point. And do you want to have a encryption using a customer managed key? Like in Azure, you could either manage the encryption through the Azure managed keys or the customer managed keys. So I'm not doing any kind of a data factory encryption right now, so nothing is there. So I can move on to the tags. These tags are given for every kind of a service that you create. So tags help you to kind of define or filter out your services in terms of billing. Let's say you have multiple services, multiple departments. So you could create a key value pair like a tags for those, and that helps you classify while you are going through your costing or billing or multiple purposes. So once it is done, you just go on to the review plus create. So it lets you know that the validation has passed. So if everything has been passed, so that looks fine, and it gives you all the options what you have selected. So just click on the create button. So once you hit the create button, it normally takes a couple of minutes to get it configured and the instance is ready for you. So I'll just kind of pause this video over here, and we'll come back once this instance is ready. So friends, you can see the instance is ready, the deployment is complete, and if I want to go on to my resource, I can just click on to go to the resource. These are the various standard options that would come based upon the services in Azure. You have an overview, activity log, IAM, access and identity management, managed identities. You could set your networking or anything. So let's say I'll go on to the overview, and it tells you some basic information. And one of the most important things over here is Azure Data Factory Studio. That's, you launch the studio. Now studio is the actual, once you click on that, it actually opens up a new window, and that's where you actually work within the Azure Data Factory. You start creating your workflows, or you orchestrate your data driven workflows out here. This is the by default home screen which is available to you. You have a home, you have author, you have monitor, you have manage, and you have a learning center also. So let's say if I go on to the author, so you have pipelines, you have data sets, you have data flows or power queries, something like this. If you click on that, so if you see, you have a pipeline, you have a data set, you have a data flow, copy data tool, or something like this. So these are the options. We definitely discussed about pipelines or data sets or even the linked services in the previous video to understand the main concepts. And once you are ready, you could actually start working on this. This is the default option where you actually work directly into the Azure Data Factory environment. It's not get configured, so everything is saved automatically for you, whatever the changes you make. And like for example, you create your linked services over here, integration runtimes or git configuration you could do, or triggers you want to set, how you want to run your Azure Data Factory. So everything would be by default saved for you. It's a kind of a management which is being governed by Azure, so that all your artifacts within the Azure Data Factory are saved. So I hope guys, this video would give you a clear-cut demonstration about how you create an Azure Data Factory instance. And in the coming videos, we'll start using this Azure Data Factory and start creating certain services or certain flows or linked services, how we could actually create those kind of workflows as we discussed in the previous video. So stay tuned. I'll be coming up with more videos. And in case you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe it. Thank you.